The Michael Jackson biopic was supposed to celebrate the King of Pop, but behind the trailers, the hype, and the emotional fan reactions, something deeper was happening. Michael's own daughter, Paris Jackson, publicly distanced herself from the film. His sister, Janet Jackson, does not appear in it at all. And behind the movie stands the same estate now facing questions from Paris, an estate also tied to one of the most controversial deals in Michael Jackson's legacy, Sony. In November 2019, the Jackson estate reached an agreement with producer Graham King, granting him exclusive worldwide rights to tell Michael Jackson's story on film. Studio partners lined up quickly, and a major director, Antoine Fuqua, signed on to direct. The project carried the weight of an official tribute, with the estate's legal team guiding every step, and industry headlines calling it the definitive Michael Jackson movie. Casting the lead role became a moment of both symbolism and hope. Jafar Jackson, Michael's nephew, was chosen to portray his uncle. The announcement was met with anticipation, as Jafar's family ties and musical background promised a performance rooted in personal connection. In a behind-the-scenes interview, Jafar spoke about the responsibility and honor of bringing Michael's story to life, emphasizing his commitment to authenticity and respect. The estate's approach extended to the next generation as well. Prince Jackson, Michael's eldest son, attended a private screening of the film's first cut in May 2025, later posting about the experience with the words, "Watching family history." While Prince did not issue a formal statement of approval or criticism, his presence at the screening was widely interpreted as a gesture of support, or at least engagement with the project. With the estate's formal approval, and with Jafar and Prince visibly connected to the project, the film began to gather momentum. The production was positioned not just as a movie, but as a major cultural event, a chance to reintroduce Michael's legacy to a new generation, with the full backing of those who control his story. For many, it seemed the biopic would finally offer a narrative both personal and official, promising to honor the complexity and genius of the King of Pop. Paris Jackson's response to the biopic did not follow the script that many expected. While the project moved forward with official approval and family faces attached, Paris drew a clear line in the sand. In a March 2025 Vanity Fair interview, she said, "I have 0% involvement in the Michael biopic. The script was sent to me, I never gave notes, and I never consented to any portrayal. This was not a quiet disagreement behind closed doors." On Instagram, she repeated the message, "No talk, no deal, I am not part of this." For Paris, this did not seem to be about rejecting Michael. It seemed to be about rejecting a version of his story she did not trust. In her public comments, she described reading an early draft, offering feedback about what she called dishonest elements, and then being told her suggestions would not be considered. She later explained, "I just butted out and left it alone because they told me my feedback would not matter. There is no evidence of behind-the-scenes negotiation, no sign of a family rift or dramatic confrontation." Instead, Paris's position was defined by absence and refusal. She declined invitations to script meetings, virtual calls, and even a script read-through, according to multiple reports. In her words, "My dad's story belongs to us, not the studio." Her stance was not just a personal protest, it became a public warning, a boundary drawn around her father's memory. The message was consistent: she would not lend her name, her presence, or her approval to a project she felt did not honor the truth as she understood it. This is where the biopic becomes more than a film. It becomes part of a larger fight over control, over who is allowed to shape Michael Jackson's legacy and whose voices are left out. In September 2025, Paris Jackson took her dispute with the Michael Jackson estate to Los Angeles Superior Court. Her petition accused executors John Branca and John McClain of withholding clear financial records for the biopic, pointing to $27 million in licensing revenue and $39 million in production costs. She questioned a $5 million producer fee paid directly to the executors and claimed these figures were missing from standard estate reports to beneficiaries. Paris argued that spending on marketing and promotion had surpassed what the court had approved, and she attached redacted financial statements and emails between Branca and Sony executives discussing profit splits. The petition accused the executors of prioritizing commercial interests over Michael Jackson's stated wishes from his 1998 legacy plan, and called for a forensic accounting to clarify the estate's actions. The estate responded with a motion to dismiss, asserting that all transactions, including executive producer compensation, were authorized by the probate court. They cited an independent KPMG audit and filed an affidavit affirming transparency. The legal battle remained unresolved, with a status conference set for June 2026. For Paris, the case was about more than money, and it was about demanding accountability for her father's legacy. John Branca's name appears at the top of the credits, not just as a legal architect, but as executive producer, a title that carries both financial reward and creative leverage. The 2019 option agreement between the Jackson estate and producer Graham King contains a clause giving Branca as executor final say over script changes, casting, and music licensing. Production memos list estate approval required for every major creative decision, and Branca himself has spoken publicly about shaping the film's direction. In June 2024, he said that they made sure the script accurately reflects Michael's philanthropic side and that they push for scenes that showcase his creative process. Court filings from Paris Jackson's petition include an email from Branca to Sony insisting on authenticity for the moonwalk sequence and refusing to compromise on choreography. This level of detail down to the dance steps signals a hands-on approach that goes beyond rubber stamping contracts. Yet in the release screenplay, Branca appears only thinly veiled as a minor character called John B., described as Michael's longtime manager. The script omits his real-world control over the estate's finances and the film's narrative. Critics argue that this creative oversight, while permitted by contract, blurs the line between stewardship and authorship. For supporters, Branca's involvement is seen as a safeguard, ensuring Michael's legacy is protected by someone who knew him. But the question remains, when the gatekeeper holds the keys to both the business and the story, whose version of Michael Jackson reaches the world? Sony's purchase of half of Michael Jackson's music catalog in 2024 sent shockwaves through the fan community and the industry. The deal, valued at over $1 billion, handed Sony a 50% stake in both the master recordings and publishing rights, assets Michael himself once fought so fiercely to control. In 2002, Michael publicly challenged Sony's leadership, saying, "I am not a slave to anyone," and demanded the return of his masters. That history lingers over every new headline. The estate's executors, John Branca and John McClain, justified the sale as a strategic move to stabilize the trust, fund future projects, and keep Michael's music in the spotlight. They pointed to rising streaming numbers and the need for deep-pocketed partners to keep pace in a changing industry. But emotionally, many fans felt differently. For them, Michael's struggle for ownership was not just business, it was personal, a matter of dignity. How could Michael fight for ownership in life only for part of that legacy to move back towards Sony after his death? The catalog sale did more than shift financial power. It positioned Sony as a key stakeholder in the biopic's soundtrack, in licensing, and in shaping which version of Michael's story the world would hear. The question of who owns the music now bleeds into who owns the narrative, and whose interests are ultimately served when business and memory collide. Janet Jackson's absence from the Michael biopic is not explained by drama or public feud. It is defined by a single sentence from her publicist. Due to creative differences, Janet Jackson will not be participating in the project. No interviews, no further comment. LaToya Jackson, in a direct message to the producers, wrote, "Janet's not comfortable with the script, will decline." That message, later shared on social media, echoed the official line and closed the door without spectacle. Janet's silence stands in quiet contrast to Paris's public refusal. Where Paris drew boundaries with statements and legal filings, Janet chose to step back, offering no elaboration. Fans and commentators have speculated about her reasons, but the only evidence is her absence and the publicist's letter. There is no confirmation of a family rift or negotiation breakdown, just a decision to remain apart from a version of Michael's story she did not shape. This silence is not an act of betrayal, sometimes silence is protection. In a family where public words can become weapons, Janet's refusal to participate speaks as loudly as any statement. Together, Paris's protest and Janet's quiet distance form dual acts of resistance, one loud, one silent, each drawing a line around what it means to guard Michael's memory. Michael Jackson spent his life fighting to be understood, but even after death, his story is still being edited, packaged, sold, defended, and attacked. The unanswered question hangs in the air. When the storytellers are chosen by contract and the silences are chosen by family, who decides what truth survives? Michael Jackson spent his life fighting to be understood. Even after his death, his story continues to be edited, packaged, sold, defended, and attacked. Sometimes silence is not betrayal, sometimes silence is protection. Every legacy is a warning, a boundary, a question, and not every truth survives the fight.